Happy Wednesday, September 25th, 2024, everyone. Thank you for being so patient with me. Did have some technical difficulties early this afternoon and getting this up and running for you, but now we have it up and running, and we're going to be talking about the latest updates now that we do have. Some new trends are starting to emerge early this afternoon. We're going to go over the new data with you, the latest on the track of Helene. We're going to go over even the latest impacts with Helene, and we're going to also be talking about what you need to prepare for here over the next 24 to 36 hours upon landfall. Here is the latest GOES satellite IR imagery. This is the infrared satellite imagery here provided by tropicaltidbits.com. And you can see that there is a lot of thunderstorm activity. We do actually have a clear center starting to develop here just to the north and east of the Yucatan. It is over the open waters of the southeastern, very far southeastern Gulf of Mexico right now. The outer bands are starting to move over Key West and parts of Cuba as well. So we are starting to see some impacts already for the state of Florida. So we are starting to see the cloud cover overspread there and some precipitation start to overspread there. Hey, Ben, thanks for joining. Appreciate it. Again, if you're just joining now, I apologize. The live stream was supposed to begin at 1 p.m. Central Daylight Time. It did not. It started, 17 minutes or so later because of the technical difficulties I did experience. Let's switch over to here. We do have the latest cone from the National Hurricane Center here. This is their latest advisory. It did just come out here literally 17 minutes ago, right when I was going to go live here. So 1 o'clock, this is fresh off the presses right now, basically, and we have a hurricane ongoing. We have a Category 1 hurricane right now emerging into the Gulf of Mexico. It is maximum sustained winds of 80 miles per hour, and it is moving to the north-northwest at 10 miles per hour here. And rapid intensification is expected to occur this evening and overnight tonight. So we're expecting that as it takes that right-hand turn towards the Sunshine State of Florida, we're going to start to see the rapid intensification of this system. And we already have hurricane warnings up for the Big Bend area there of Florida. Hurricane warnings are up and hoisted for the eastern Yucatan there as well. Where you see these blues, those are tropical storm warnings that stretch all across the Tampa Bay area, down into Naples, Fort Myers, all the way down to the Florida Keys and the eastern side of Florida. Miami, we were talking about yesterday that didn't have any weather alerts with this system. Well, now you are under a tropical storm warning in the Miami, Fort Lauderdale areas, all the way up to Jacksonville Beach, Daytona Beach, and then up into the Savannah area, and all the way up even into South Carolina. We have those tropical storm warnings in the blue, including the Charleston area, all the way up to Myrtle Beach. So we're keeping a very close eye on this system. You see the M right here, 7 a.m. Thursday, M. That means major hurricane, a Category 3 or stronger system is a expected trend here as we go into tomorrow morning. And then it's all the way up upon landfall. We're going to have that Category 3, possibly Category 4 strength system. And then it'll remain a tropical storm early Saturday or early Friday morning rather, up into the Atlanta area. So if you're in Atlanta, Georgia and watching me here, that is definitely something we're keeping an eye on for you folks. And then a post-tropical cyclone as it finally takes its westward shift there up toward Paducah, Kentucky and the Nashville area on Saturday. So a lot to talk about here. Let's get right to it. And let's look currently at the latest spaghetti models from this system here. And notice how they have converged on a narrowing solution here since the last few days. We saw the spaghetti models all over the place on where this could track. There is narrowing solutions now. It is very likely, if not expected now, that this is going to push into the northwest Florida panhandle and parts of the Big Bend area with the eye wall. And that's where the most significant impacts from this system will be. Of course, even outside the eye wall and far and wide from the system, we're going to also have more impacts, including tornadic thunderstorms that could produce tornadoes across central Florida and southern Florida and even up into the Carolinas here. So something to keep an eye on there. Why are we seeing rapid intensification? Well, this system is in an area that is thermodynamically very, it's very favorable for this system to rapidly intensify. The waters could not get much warmer down here in the Western Caribbean or the Eastern Gulf, and we're seeing that right-hand turn, and it's in an area where we have that sustained water temperature well into the mid and upper 80s. and near 90 degrees, and even up to a landfall here in northwest Florida, the Big Bend area. Still, those water temperatures are at least in the low 80s across those regions. So very, very warm water temperatures. Here is the latest intensity guidance that did come in late this morning and early on here this afternoon. We are expecting a Category 3 hurricane. Like I mentioned, a major hurricane would be Category 3 or higher, and it's still not out of the realm of possibility that a Category 4 hurricane could happen at landfall as we go into Thursday evening. That's when we're expecting landfall here from this system before, as it moves on land, and then it has that land interaction and then quickly starting to dwindle with the intensity. Let's look at two of the hurricane models. This is the 6Z runs of the models. We're waiting on the 12Z runs that should be out here any hour now. I think around 2 o'clock this afternoon or so, if I'm not mistaken. But let's look at the latest data that we do have at our disposal here. This is the HAFS A parent model. There's a HAFS A parent model and there's a HAFS B model as well. And looking at this does very well in initializing this system, and that's exactly where it is, just offshore of the Yucatan. That's where the central low pressure is. That's where the National Hurricane Center has identified that central low pressure at a 984 or so millibars. Again, some discrepancy in this a little bit, but it initializes the placement of it very well. And then as we go into tonight, notice it moves from 984 millibars down to 964. It drops 20 millibars in a 12-hour period, if not a 6-hour period. So this is going to be rapid intensification as we were expecting as we go into tonight. And then going into the day on Thursday, this model in particular even gets stronger with this, down to a Cat 3 strength at 944 millibars just to the south and west of the Big Bend of Florida. We're already seeing onshore flow into the Tampa Bay region, into the Naples region, and Fort Myers. So you're going to see impacts already during the day on Thursday before landfall. And then as we go into Thursday evening, landfall expected there. This model in particular has it in the western Big Bend area at a 932 millibars. That is a high-end Cat 3 or a low-end Cat 4 strength with this model. Now, same thing here. Let's look at the HAFS B parent model. It does a very similar thing. It has the low pressure, maybe a little closer to the Yucatan coast, but it's still in a very similar area to where that central low pressure system is right now. And the hurricane will likely strengthen quickly over the next 6 to 12 hours through the overnight hours tonight, early on your Thursday morning, down to 965 millibars on this model. And then look at this. This model actually gets a little bit more bullish on the strength and intensity of this system, down to 931. That is equating to a low-end Category 4 already during the day on Thursday, and down to 910 millibars. This model in particular has this approaching Category 5 strength. So while a Category 5 is not to be ruled out, I think really we're still likely seeing a Category 3 for sure, and potentially still a Cat 4. I think a Cat 5 is still possible, but I think the probability is still pretty low of that. But we'll continue to get the new data in here, and we'll continue to give you guys the new data and give you the new information as it comes in. But right now we're looking, again, likely, very likely, in fact, at a Category 3, and it's still possible this gets to a Category 4 and Category 5 strength. We'll have to keep a very, very close eye on it. Here is the latest update from the National Hurricane Center from late this morning with your peak storm surge forecast. Really hasn't changed too much since last night, since we spoke, or early this morning when I produced my video on my channel. 10 to 15 foot storm surge here across most of the Big Bend of Florida. Again, that is very unsurvivable, folks. If you're on the coast, you need to be off the coast here today if you have not been. This is dangerous storm surge. Most of tall men are in their low 6 foot range, right? Like 6'2", 6'3". This is well over that, folks. This is 10 to 15 feet of storm surge over normally dry ground. So this is very dangerous and very, very unsurvivable in this area. Even still, very significant down here into the Tampa Bay region. We could see up to 8 foot storm surge into the Bay area of Tampa Bay, and some of that actually could begin during the day on Thursday. Forget about landfall. This will actually start during the morning and afternoon on Thursday here. And honestly, I wouldn't even rule out some storm surge beginning later on tonight as well. Maybe not to the magnitude of 5 to 8 feet, but I do think that there is a pretty good potential of seeing a couple of feet of storm surge even late tonight, and then really starting to ramp up here progressively through the day tomorrow. So that's what we're looking at. It's currently in the Tampa Bay area, 5 to 8 feet. Again, a little small scale details, the mesoscale details with this system are still to be ironed out. And what I mean by that is if this system shifts just 50 miles, just 50 miles to the east, which on a map that doesn't look like a lot, but if it really shifts 50 miles to the east, this could put Tampa Bay in a more precarious situation with even higher storm surge values into the 6 to 10 foot range, and that could actually slide down a little further south. So that is something that we do have to monitor here as well. If you're watching from the Naples, Fort Myers area all the way down toward the Keys, we're looking at up to 5 foot storm surge. In the Keys itself, we're looking up to 3 foot storm surge. And we also have to watch our friends over here from Jacksonville Beach up to the Savannah area, Charleston, South Carolina, and all the way up toward Myrtle Beach. We could see all the way up to 3 foot storm surge in those areas as well. So that is something to keep a very close eye on as we go in through this event on Thursday and Friday. Another graphic I wanted to show to you folks here on the live is we are going to be seeing even well offshore near the eye wall of this system and where the strongest wind gradient will be. We could be seeing waves approaching 40, 41 feet just a couple hundred miles to the west of Tampa Bay, and that will create some very significant surf. And just kind of putting it into a bigger perspective of how powerful this system is, just think about that, folks. A 41-foot wave and how strong and powerful that wave will be. That is the potential we're seeing as we go into Thursday afternoon tomorrow and into Thursday evening tomorrow as well. So very, very interesting to look at the wave heights there. And even some of those waves, and you can see some yellows and oranges crashing into the west coast of the U.S. That is 12 to 15 foot waves. So that is still some very high wave action crashing in and helping to get that storm surge really significant into the Tampa Bay region. Another aspect of this system, and this is probably the most widespread impact for everybody across not only Florida, but also the southeast U.S., the Tennessee and Ohio River valleys, the mid-Mississippi Valley, whatever you want to call it there, is going to be the rainfall aspect of this system. We're going to have a moisture-laden system, as most tropical systems are, and it's going to have more than enough precipitable water to wring out here like a sponge. So as we go into this afternoon, we're already seeing some moderate rain showers beginning across the Atlanta area all the way up into, say, Chattanooga, into the Asheville, North Carolina region, and even up toward Charleston, West Virginia. Some of that is tied to the moisture from Hurricane Helene, but also just some remnant moisture with our trough moving in as well. It's on the eastern side of that trough that's going to collide with this system. And then as we go into tonight, we're going to see even heavier rainfall with this. Notice the topography and where this rainfall is the Smoky Mountains and the Appalachians as well. So this is going to lead to a potential for some significant flash flooding right out the gate as we go into tonight. And that's why the Weather Prediction Center has that high risk for flash flooding here. We'll show you that in just a moment as we go into tonight. And then going into Thursday, notice how the parent system is still offshore. We haven't had landfall during the day yet, and we're still seeing very heavy rainfall rates on the order of 1 to 2, even 3 inches per hour across the Atlanta area, all the way up toward Chattanooga there. And then we're starting to see those outer bands move into Florida there and southern Georgia. Finally, Thursday night, we see landfall, and that's where the peak of the rainfall rates will be. When that eye wall shifts inland into southern Georgia and North Florida, we're going to see an uptick, major uptick in the rainfall rates with this system. So that is definitely something to keep a very close eye on. Heading into the day on Friday to end the work week, we're going to see that down to 989 millibars or so as it pushes up into Tennessee. That will spread out some rainfall as far west as Little Rock over there, and then into the Music City in Nashville, we could be seeing some heavier rainfall rates on Friday, and then up there into eastern Kentucky, the Carolinas, Virginia, and West Virginia. Do note that some of these areas are very dry. Like West Virginia, we have exceptional drought ongoing right now. This actually could make the runoff a little bit worse. We have the topography like we talked about with the Smoky Mountains and the Appalachians. So that is something to keep a close eye on. And then into Saturday, we start to see drier air take over, and the system becomes finally a post-tropical cyclone in the mid-Mississippi Valley. So let's look at rainfall rates before we answer our question here in rainfall amounts. And we'll answer questions here in just momentarily. Rainfall amounts through Sunday. This goes through the end of the weekend, and it's very significant. I would say from southwestern Virginia all the way through the western Carolinas, southeast Tennessee through much of northern and western Georgia, southeastern and eastern portions of Alabama down into the northwest Florida area, including the Big Bend, and parts of even the west coast of Florida. We could be seeing rainfall amounts literally 6 inches or more. So we're looking at 6 to 12 inches of rain. This model actually has 14 inches, and this is the national blend of models. What it does is it puts all of the weather models into one solution and averages it out. And you can see if we're looking at an average of 7-8 inches of rain in Atlanta, that is very significant. So here is your Weather Prediction Center flash flood probability guidance here. Here you have a high risk of flash flooding into the tri-state area here today. This continues into tonight across the western Carolinas and into northeastern Georgia. Moderate risk does include the Atlanta metro. As we go into Thursday, this is the peak of the event, not only for landfall, but also all the impacts, destructive winds and rainfall that could be significant, and some extreme flash flooding is possible here as we have a large moderate risk overspreading the southeast here all the way up to the Virginia, North Carolina state line. High risk embedded in that same area that's seeing that high risk tonight gets a little bit more widespread. And then as we go into the day on Friday, still that moderate risk of flash flooding into western North Carolina as well. And then finally by Saturday, like we said, it becomes a post-tropical cyclone and finally starts to weaken there as a marginal risk for flash flooding in the mid-Mississippi Valley. So that's what we're seeing. One more thing is just to understand what these risk categories are for flash flooding. A moderate risk for flash flooding does mean numerous flash floods are likely. Some of them could be significant events. Many streams will flood, ditches, low-lying areas, and that could actually potentially affect larger tributary rivers as well across the southeast. So rivers are probably going to hit flood stage very quickly as we go into the weekend because of all of this water and moisture. And looking at the high risk, it means widespread flash floods are not only likely, but expected. And it could be a very significant event to where areas that don't normally flood could, lives and property are in greater danger in this risk category. So we'll keep a very close eye on that. Putting this all into perspective real quick and seeing here how rare these high risk days are for flash flooding. 1 out of every 3 of all flood events have flood-related fatalities. 36% of flood-related fatalities occur in high-risk days. 21% of those are in moderate-risk flooding days here. Not to scare anybody, but that's just the real facts about this here and how serious high-risk days are for flash flooding. And 4 out of every 5 are actually flood-related damages. You can see 80% of all flood-related damages occur in high-risk days, 6% in moderate-risk days. So that's why we have today and tomorrow we have that high risk for flash flooding, something to keep a very, very close eye on. So let's answer some questions. If you guys have any questions for me, specifically for any cities out there or anything, I can help you out in giving you the information that you need with the latest information that I do have here. If you haven't already, smash that like button here as I am literally spoon feeding you all this information, folks, right at here, literally fresh off the presses. We have the latest track of the system from the National Hurricane Center, the latest flash flood guidance from the Weather Prediction Center. We have the latest model runs from the hurricane models on here. Make sure you press the like button and subscribe to the channel so you have the latest live stream and video information here on the channel as well. Make sure all post notifications are turned on. All right, so let's go down here. So I see a question about what about the tornado threat for eastern North Carolina? So let's go back here into looking at some of the models here real quick, and let's look at what the HRRR has. I actually have not seen this yet today. Let's see how strong the HRRR gets this. And actually the HRRR is not as strong as some of the weather models, but it does good in showing where these bands could be. So let's zoom into the southeast view and looking at eastern North Carolina. Some of these outer bands, it's going to look like popcorn on the screen. Some of these outer bands Thursday afternoon, this will be tomorrow afternoon, could be producing some storm surge, like we said, up to 3-foot storm surge there for South Carolina, North Carolina. But also some of these could be embedded with tornadoes as well as we go through the day on Thursday. And this would actually really start getting going Thursday morning around mid-morning and then continue. I think the peak of the tornado threat in the Carolinas will actually be Thursday afternoon and really carry into Friday morning. So we're going to have a swift 6 to 12 hours worth of the tornado potential there. And you can see that real heavy band coming in overnight Thursday across portions of South Carolina. So Myrtle Beach, Charleston, Columbia, those areas really need to be on high alert for potential tornadoes with this system. As that central low pressure moves in just south of the Atlanta area there, overnight Thursday and into Friday. So that's what we're looking at for eastern North Carolina. So hopefully that answered your question there. When would the biggest risk for tornadoes be for Wilmington? Same thing. The Wilmington area, the biggest risk for tornadoes will start really in earnest around mid-morning tomorrow and continue all the way through, I would say, mid-morning on Friday. So a 12-hour or 24-hour period of just straight potential for tornadoes there. It looks like the strongest band, I know I'm trying not to move this super quick for you folks, but the strongest band moves in, it looks like around midnight Thursday and into Friday morning. So that's what we're seeing there, especially into the Wilmington area. That big band moves through just before daybreak there on Friday. They could, yeah. The Storm Prediction Center could raise that risk a little bit for the tornadoes as we get closer to the event. Of course, I don't work for the Storm Prediction Center, so I don't know what their thinking is on that. But right now, I do think that there will be at least a few tornadoes probably from the system. Usually, when you get a Category 3 or 4 hurricane, you're at least somewhere going to see potentially even a stronger tornado that may be on the ground for a little bit. We'll keep an eye on that. And unfortunately, a lot of this tornado threat may actually occur overnight, so when we're sleeping. So make sure if you have a weather radio, make sure you activate that. Hopefully it's tuned into the county or city that you live in, and so if a tornado warning is issued for your county, that it alerts you overnight while you're sleeping. So make sure you're watching out for that as we go into, especially again, Thursday night and into Friday, and maybe even again Friday night as well. Yeah, I know, Karen Lee. That's why we're here. We're here to keep you safe and ahead of the storm, so you have all the information that you have. That's what the purpose of this live stream is for. So we're going to continue to give you the latest information, and if I have to go live again with any breaking updates later on tonight, I will do that as well. Potentially even producing a video again later today. If not, for sure tomorrow, I'll have another video forecast. If you guys have not seen my video yet, make sure to go give it a like and subscribe to the channel again for the latest information on this situation as it develops. What areas in Jacksonville, Florida has the highest risk? Everywhere. Everywhere in the Jacksonville area will have a chance for tornadoes. Looks like the Jacksonville region, these outer bands start reaching you, it looks like tomorrow evening around 8, 9 o'clock, but really get going here around Thursday. Actually, the bands actually start in the Jacksonville area as we go into this evening. And then it really starts getting going into the daybreak time on Thursday. So that's when we're starting to see that in Jacksonville Beach area. And then you continue to see those bands kind of ushering in as we go into Thursday afternoon. And then maybe one final swipe of a band coming through as we go into late tomorrow evening before we start to dry out. All right, so that's what we're looking at. So Thursday's your big day in Jacksonville for potentially very heavy rain and the tornado threat. Thank you so much for the $9.99, Shiraka, I think. Hopefully I pronounced that correctly. Thank you so much for the $9.99. Thank you, it says. Thank you so much for being here. I appreciate it. You did not have to do that. Thank you for your generosity. And hopefully I didn't butcher the name. Hopefully, is it Shiraka? Did I say that correctly? But I appreciate it very, very much. Thank you. Right now, landfall is predicted, I would say, on either side of Tallahassee. I think if we're looking at this, Tallahassee is probably ground zero at this time. Obviously, little shifts or deviations in the track will mean everything to where the eye wall goes. But Tallahassee, Florida is looking like landfall. And actually, I could probably, let's see if I could get in, let me see if I could pull up a map here on my other screen and look at the state of Florida. Because Tallahassee's really, it's not like on the coast. So let's see here. Tallahassee would be somewhere to watch. I think a good chance of this actually making landfall in, say, the St. Mark's area, the Fish Creek region, maybe as far south as Horseshoe Beach, if you know where that is in the Big Bend of Florida, and maybe even as far west here as the Alligator Point region. So we'll keep a very close eye on that. as we go into tonight to see where it exactly tracks, but that is what we're seeing currently. And again, we're going to zoom this out a little bit further for you folks to see the full scope of this hurricane just a little bit. So there it is right there spinning, and there's Florida, there's Cuba here, and then you have the Central Americas, Honduras, and also Mexico, the Yucatan Peninsula over here. That's where it is right now, near Mexico, near the Yucatan, and we're starting to get and identify more of that eye starting to try and develop with this. That means rapid intensification is beginning as this is starting to move into the eastern Gulf of Mexico, and we'll keep you updated. CB, thank you so much for your very generous $20. Thank you. You have done a great job helping people and answering questions. Absolutely. That's why we're here. That's why I decided to go live today here, is to answer questions, get you guys ahead of the storm, and all the impacts that are possible with the system so you guys know what to expect. And with the latest data, as it's always fluid situation with these hurricanes and stuff like that. So it's great to update you guys on that, and hopefully we all learn something new about a hurricane, because every hurricane's different, right? So hopefully we all, including me, learn more about these hurricanes. So if something similar to this track, or like Michael back in 2018, hopefully this is a learning lesson to how powerful these systems can be in the future. So like, for example, if another hurricane comes up this way towards Western Caribbean Sea and moves toward the Yucatan, then we can say, well, Michael did that, and so did Helene. So that is something to keep in mind as well for the future. So it's a learning lesson for all of us. H-Wharf is showing it. There are some models that have been showing it for quite some time. If I go back to the H-Wharf, to what you were talking about, the 12Z, yes, the H-Wharf is down to 918 millibars. Again, that's possible. It definitely is. A Category 5 is still possible. I just don't think it's likely until we see some information and rapid intensification tonight. We won't know for sure. But yeah, 918 millibars would equate to a low-end Cat 5. I definitely think that is still a possibility. It's just not likely. I think the most likely solution is a Cat 3 and possibly still a Cat 4 and a Cat 5 kind of a little bit further down the road. But I think the Cat 5 is still can't be ruled out, certainly with this system. So that's what we're watching for. Southeastern Indiana, let's go to my rainfall graphic here. I think the biggest potential impact for Southeast Indiana is honestly just going to be the moisture from the system. Like we were talking about earlier, this is a moisture-laden system. This is going to have a lot of moisture, and think of a sponge. You get a sponge under the sink, fill it with water, and then wring it out. That's basically what this system's going to do across the southeast. And for southeastern Indiana, I think we're looking at a good 1 to 2 inches of rain, maybe isolated 3-inch totals the closer you get to Louisville or Evansville in far southern Indiana. If you go further north into Indianapolis, I think that drops off significantly, although we're still seeing a 1/2 inch to 3/4 of an inch of rain up there into central Indiana. So we're still going to see a formidable rain band move that far north as we go, especially Friday, but into Saturday as well. Absolutely, Anomaly Annie. Thanks for being here. I appreciate it. Is there a possibility it would turn eastward since it's not in the Gulf yet? Well, it is entering the Gulf right now. So we'll go back to the let's go back to the satellite imagery of this right now, the IR, and it is actually entering into the Gulf right now. So here is we'll go to the Western Atlantic view. It's entering into the Gulf. It's kind of in that in-between period of the Caribbean and the Gulf, but it is moving into the Gulf this afternoon. So that is starting to occur now. The central low pressure is just north and east of the Yucatan. So really, actually, the central low pressure with this system is entering in to the southeastern Gulf as we speak right now, momentarily. So we're seeing that. Let's see. Can the wind overcome the mountains and actually get in the valley? Yeah, I think there's still going to be some gustier winds up here into portions of... Let's look at that as well. I think there's still going to be some gusty winds up here into the southeast, like inland, into Georgia and stuff like that. but it's not going to be nearly as significant as it is in like the Big Bend of Florida. We're certainly not going to be seeing 100-mile-per-hour wind gusts in Tennessee like you're going to probably see there into the Big Bend area of Florida as it makes landfall. But here are the winds, and we'll actually zoom this in just a little bit here. And here's the wind forecast with this. I think, honestly, as we go in towards tomorrow evening around 7 p.m., 8 p.m. Central Time or so, so that would be 8 or 9 p.m. Eastern, you can see we have some very strong winds. And if this truly is a Cat 3 or 4, this would be producing winds in excess of 100 miles per hour, at least with the gusts. And it could be well higher than that, even if it gets up to that Cat 5 strength, obviously. And as it moves inland into southern Georgia, we're still likely going to be seeing wind gusts well into the 70 to 90 mile per hour range, even into southern Georgia as we go into overnight Thursday and into Friday morning. As it moves up into the western Carolinas, western and central Carolinas, and even eastern Tennessee up there, so Johnson City, in towards the Knoxville and Gatlinburg region, we could be seeing wind gusts over 40 to 50 miles per hour still with this system Friday morning before it really starts to dwindle, but still gusty winds up there in towards, say, Kentucky, Ohio, and Indiana, eastern Illinois, up to over 30 miles per hour still during the day on Friday. So it's going to carry some winds further to the north. It's not nearly going to be, though, as significant as when it makes landfall. Yes, that is some wind. Absolutely. Absolutely. So the three main takeaways from this: storm surge. It's going to be extreme. If you live in the Big Bend of Florida, you need to get out today if you are not there, because up to 15-foot storm surge, that's over normally dry ground. So think of going to the beach and you're laying in the sand, soaking in the sun, and then you have the ocean off in the distance, right? That sand is 15 feet of water literally Thursday evening, okay? That's what we're talking about. Dry, it's water over normally dry ground. So all that water is going to be pushing in, and that's what we call storm surge, and that is the potential as we go into the day Thursday, and especially Thursday night, into the Big Bend of Florida. Again, just joining, make sure to smash that like button. We only have 87 likes here. Make sure to subscribe to the channel. We are only 800 subscribers, believe it or not, from 100,000. So if you guys can help me out in getting to 100,000 subscribers as well, since I'm here giving you guys information, help me out. We'll definitely appreciate that very, very much. But either way, we're here to keep you covered with any questions that you have. I'll answer as many as I can. I honestly don't know the answer to that, Catherine. What time is the high tide in Tampa Bay tomorrow? That's a very good question. I do not know. I haven't dove into that information. I probably should. I'll look into that this afternoon. If I do a live this evening, I will update you on that. But I do not know currently. Thank you so much, Chris. Appreciate it. Thank you so much, Karen Lee. I appreciate it. I'm on the east side of Mobile Bay. The neighborhood around me is a mess, and I don't know what that means. Are you talking about like with flooding or what? All right. So let me look at any new updates that the National Hurricane Center has here. And all right, so let's look here at see if they're doing any current recon missions right now. So okay, that's going into John. We don't want that. Let's see. That was completed earlier. So they did a low-level recon mission earlier into Helene. That's what granted this earlier this morning into a hurricane. Around, I think it was 10 a.m. Central Time or so. That was the latest recon mission they had with the system. And that's what gave us the hurricane upgrade this morning. They had a couple drop sondes in there as well, and they also, I think this might have been last night, if I'm not mistaken, or very early this morning, and they had another low-level recon mission, so they had two. I think this was the one last night, and this was the one this morning. Obviously, as the storm gets a lot closer, they're going to be doing a lot of more of those low-level recon missions to get more of the information fed into the models. So that is going to be very important moving forward with this system. So we'll be looking out for that as well with my future videos and live streams here on this system. Okay, thank you so much, Catherine. I appreciate it. Yeah, because I was going to look that up later after the live. I didn't want to look it up now, but I appreciate it. Catherine says the time for high tide in the Tampa Bay area in Florida tomorrow is at 4:07 p.m. Is that Eastern time? Is that 4:07 Eastern or Central? When it will be 3.2 feet. Okay, yeah, that's important because that will actually increase the storm surge a little bit. That's why I think the storm surge forecast takes into account that. I think the National Hurricane Center takes that into account when they're making a storm surge forecast, I believe. That's why they have up to 8-foot storm surge in the Tampa Bay area, potentially tomorrow evening. The greatest potential for tornadoes will be on the eastern side of the system, so like Central Florida and the Carolinas will be more in line for that. I think if you're further west into like Alabama, there's still a low chance for tornadoes, but I think the tornado threat is greatest always on the eastern side of the system here. So like what I was showing you earlier with the HRRR model, you can see these banding features coming up here on the eastern side of the system. So initially tomorrow, during the morning, we're going to be watching that for the entire state of Florida pretty much. Those banding features with supercell thunderstorms embedded could be producing water spouts over water, and then obviously over land that'd be called tornadoes. And that could be a thing tomorrow morning. And then going into tomorrow afternoon, a bigger band of supercell potentially over much of the state of Florida by mid-afternoon here around this time or so, going into the state of Florida. And then more banding features moving from offshore to onshore from the Atlantic into the Carolinas, especially South Carolina tomorrow afternoon. We'll be watching that. Like the Savannah, Georgia area, we'll be watching that tomorrow afternoon. Some of those bands could be producing tornadoes. And again, it's on the eastern side of these systems is where you really watch out for the greatest low-level wind shear. You have a lot of ingredients coming together. You have the tropical moisture in place for tornadoes. Tornadoes love moisture. Obviously, hurricanes love moisture too. And then you have the low-level wind shear as well. And you get that turning of the wind with height, right? And that's kind of what you see also in the plains with those big severe weather setups and outbreaks in the spring or fall sometimes. It's similar to that, but it's tied into a tropical system. So keep a very close eye on that. Typically, tornadoes don't last super, super long with tropical systems, but in the past, with like Category 3 and 4 hurricanes and 5s even, we have had stronger tornadoes on the ground for a little longer than a few minutes. So that can certainly happen still with tropical systems, but you're probably not going to have those tornadoes that are on the ground for like an hour straight, like sometimes you see with those long track supercells in Dixie Alley or the Southern Plains in the springtime. But certainly they could still do damage. Usually with tropical systems, you see anywhere from EF0 to EF2 strength tornadoes. Obviously, they can be stronger than that. Sometimes things defy the odds, but that's mainly what we're looking at is in the range, of EF0 to EF2 with most of these tornadoes if they occur. Rarely they're higher than that, but definitely something to keep an eye on. And again, EF0s can still produce a lot of damage, so don't let that, don't think they can't. They definitely can. I remember years ago, this was not a tropical system here, and I live in northern Illinois, and EF0, actually, there's like a tree line behind my house, and then there's another street behind that, right, with more homes and stuff. it sheared off the top of the tree lines. And then after the storm was over, I drove down to the end of the block and turned right. There's like a radio station tower that's, you know, several hundred feet tall. That thing was bent completely over like a toy, and it was very bad. I mean, there's a lot of damage, a lot of uprooted trees. Believe me, EF0 tornadoes can still do a lot of damage as well. So that's what that was rated, was an EF0 that did all that. It bent the tower completely over like a toy, like somebody just stepped on it. That's pretty much what it did. And that was, again, yes, an EF0 tornado. Yeah, there's still a small chance this goes further west, but if anything, if this storm shifts, it will shift very small. It's not going to be a major shift west. Like, we're not going to see landfall in Mobile, Alabama, for example. We're not seeing that far west. If it shifts west, it'll shift west by, like, 25 to 50 miles deviation either way, west or east. It's not going to be a big shift to the west. I would be very surprised if it was. Weather models have been pretty consistent lately on having this making landfall in the Big Bend of Florida, and that is what we're seeing here, likely with the system. It shifted several degrees already. I don't know what that means. That doesn't make any sense to me. When is the next NHC update? I think it'll be later this afternoon around 4 o'clock, potentially 4 or 5 o'clock Eastern. So we'll be watching out for that. Actually, I think they're going with Central Time. So probably about 4 o'clock, I would say, the next couple hours. You're welcome, Anomaly Annie. Thank you. I don't know. It says my stream feed is healthy, so I don't know. It must be your internet or something, Max, because I have no idea. Is anybody else noticing that am I cutting out on here on live, everybody? Just asking. If I'm cutting out, give me if I'm cutting out, give me a 1. If I'm not, give me a 2 on the chat, so I know. Because it says it's healthy on here. The stream feed is healthy, but I don't see. Yeah, so give me a 1 if it's cutting out. Give me a 2 if it's not. I see a lot of 2s already. Buffering. Yeah, it might just be your internet, honestly. If it's buffering, it's probably your internet, and you may have to refresh it. Just press the refresh button on your laptop or computer or whatever. That's probably what it is. Yeah, I know I have like an Ethernet cord that comes up to my computer now. I just got a new internet probably about a week ago, and I have like an Ethernet cord from my basement all the way coming up through the floor and plugging right into the back of my computer. Very hyper speed with this. I mean, it's crazy how fast. Like, I open a window on my computer and it, boom, it's right there. So it's much faster than my old computer. So I've done some upgrades, and thanks to you folks for the donations as well. That has helped with the upgrades on Weather on the Go here, with a lot of things. With my lighting is going to get better here soon. We're going to have better lighting. We're going to have a better webcam. We're going to have a better... I'm trying to get a backdrop behind me as well that says like Weather on the Go or something in the near future. So hopefully I can get my hands on that. We can do that. So you're not looking at my red curtain back there. But hey, it's all in time, so. Tornado threat in Johnson City, Tennessee is pretty low. It's pretty low. Let's look at this real quick here from earlier today. I believe this was the one earlier. Let me look. Yes. So earlier on this morning, the recon data actually captured this at, so somebody asked about what the pressure is now. Earlier on, when it was categorized as an 80 mile per hour hurricane, it was down to around 1,005, 1,004 millibars. And it honestly might be sub 1,000 right now, maybe in like the 990s range somewhere. Let me look. Here's the cone, if anybody's interested. Again, still an 80 mile per hour hurricane, moving north-northwest at 10 miles per hour. The hurricane center, the low pressure center, is just off the coast of the Yucatan, so it's closer to Mexico than it is Cuba. And then it's moving into the eastern or the southeastern Gulf of Mexico right now as we speak. Yeah, I saw that severe storm filmer. Yeah, it's starting to develop a little bit of an eye. And that's expected with a strong system that we're forecasting. Yeah, this is going to be, yeah, CB, I understand what you're saying. Yeah, this is going to be a big system. So, like, even well outside of the cone, you're going to have impacts. Like, most of the Carolinas, you're not in the cone. You're still going to get very heavy rain and some winds and tornado threat with this system in the Carolinas. That's why they have those tropical storm warnings that they do up into Savannah, Georgia, Charleston, all the way up to the Myrtle Beach area there in the Carolinas, because of that onshore flow, some storm surge, tornado threat potential, some water spouts potentially, and the very heavy rain and winds. Will Southwest Indiana get... No, you're not going to see that strong of winds, weather with sim. No, it's not going to be that strong. By the time it gets up into southern Indiana and southwest Indiana, wind gusts may be at most 30 miles per hour. I'm not expecting much more than that. I think the system is going to be weakening quickly once it gets past Atlanta, Georgia. And really actually before Atlanta, it's going to start weakening with its pressure. But yeah, once it gets that far north, like Evansville in Indiana up here, Paducah, Kentucky, Carbondale, Illinois, it's going to be like maybe 30 mile per hour winds. I'll give it 35 mile per hour wind gusts. I don't think it's going to be much higher than that, if at all, if it's even that strong. I think the biggest potential with this will be the heavy rain. I think it's really going to be squeezing out a lot of moisture, and that is something we're going to be watching for up there. And on the order of 1 to 2 inches into the southern Indiana region. I think southwest Indiana, I'll bring this graphic back up. Looks like around 1 to 3 inches of rain is a good bet here. So we'll keep a close eye on that. Like southern Illinois, Carbondale, Mount Vernon. Trying to think of other cities down here. Johnston City. Some of those cities down here, you're looking at around 2 inches of rain or so, maybe 3-inch totals. Cape Girardeau in Missouri, Jonesboro, Arkansas, Little Rock, 1 to 3 inches is a good bet for you. Clarksville, Tennessee, you're looking at an average around 3 to 4 inches. Same thing there in Nashville, around 3 to 4 inches of rain. The further west you go, like Jackson, Mississippi, you'll be hard-pressed to see a drop of rain with this system, to be quite honest with you. So that'll be interesting. Most of the state of Louisiana will be spared from rain, and Texas as well. It's going to kind of move this way to the north and east and then kind of backtrack to the west once it gets up toward the Tennessee Valley. Betty asks, how will Lexington, Kentucky be? Very wet. I think they're going to get around 4 inches of rain up there in the Lexington area. So 3 to 4 inches of rain is on the way, and most of that will actually be falling as we go into the day there on Friday. So you can see the rain starts up there in Lexington maybe later in the day on Thursday, continues as we go, especially into Thursday night, and then nearly unimpeded rain through much of the morning on Friday, and that will add up to 3 or 4 inches up there into the Lexington region in central Kentucky. So if you live in the Lexington, Richmond area, you guys are likely to see 3 to 4 inches worth of rain, and most of that will be the unimpeded rain as we go into Friday morning. Daytona Beach, you have tropical storm warnings. It looks like some heavy rain bands. You are also in the area that you need to watch for those tornadoes and water spouts in your area, especially during the day tomorrow, but also into Thursday night. And that onshore flow is going to be pretty strong there, especially as we go in towards that Thursday night time frame. We could be seeing some onshore flow, but most of that's going to be to the west coast of Florida, actually. So. No, I don't really expect much storm surge there in Louisiana, especially not Louisiana or Mississippi. If anything, maybe some rip currents or some rough surf, but I don't expect really storm surge or anything for like New Orleans or anything crazy, or like Gulfport, Mississippi. I don't expect that either. Those areas are going to be, rough surf and some rip currents are possible, but I think with, any storm surge over there is going to be very minimal and not affect really anybody. If you live, I see Lindsay up there. Can you check on Palatka, Florida? Palatka, Florida. Yeah, I can look real quick. Just give me 1 second here. I'm not familiar with where that is. Yeah, I see that now. So let's see. Okay, so you're kind of up towards Gainesville and St. Augustine and just south of Jacksonville. Yeah, so you're going to start to see those outer bands in the how do you pronounce that? Palatka, Florida region. During the day on Thursday, the tornado threat will start to increase in earnest throughout the day. And then as we go in towards Thursday night, we're going to see the majority of the wind and rain threat continue with tornado potential. And then we're going to start to clear out there as we go into Friday. So we're really just looking at Thursday night for you. And then after that, the weather starts to calm down as we go in towards Friday. Although maybe a couple showers still lingering around on Saturday, but there'll be plenty of dry hours for the weekend down there in the Palatka, Florida region. Thanks, Mark, for joining. Nashville, yeah, we're going to see rainfall mostly Thursday night really starting, and then as we go through the day and Friday, I think Thursday night into Friday, the rainfall will continue nearly unimpeded there in Nashville, the Music City. And like we said earlier, rainfall amounts there will be 3 to 4 inches worth, so some flash flooding will be possible there Thursday night into Friday in Nashville. In bigger cities like that, of course, you have a lot of concrete, a lot of asphalt, and not as much grass, so a lot of runoff from the water is possible. That's why flash flooding in bigger cities like Nashville, Knoxville, especially down in Atlanta, where we have more than 6 inches of rain on the way, that's going to be significant as we go through the weekend. What makes it turn to the northwest as it moves further inland? It's a trough. So there's a trough that's moving into the United States at the same time. So you don't see it on this map. And actually, let me show it to you so you can understand what I'm talking about. So let me go to the GFS model real quick here. Let's zoom out to the United States view. And let's look at this right here. All right, so let's look at this. This is the jet stream, gives you a good idea. You see this little dip in the jet stream here? You see how it kind of arcs up into Canada and then drops quick down into the central U.S.? That's what we call a trough, and that is a positively tilted trough, right? So what we're going to see is that this system, Hurricane Helene, Major Hurricane Helene, is going to move inland and kind of almost do like a Fujiwara effect. It's going to get eaten up by this trough, and it's going to actually form one big storm. That's why we're going to see a lot of rain in the Tennessee Valley, and that will be ingested into the trough and then just move off to the east as we go into that time frame. By the way, just a sneak peek for you folks, if you love the cooler weather in the upper Midwest, you're going to love this trough in early October. This trough is going to be pretty significant. It's going to cross through British Columbia, Alberta, and Saskatchewan, Canada, and then really race across the upper Great Lakes region and into the northern U.S. And early October is looking beautiful up there. And same thing for the Northeast. Big trough coming in. If you love fall air, it's going to be nice and cool up there as we go in towards the first week in October. And should I say crisp, there could be some frost in some areas, potentially further north, depending on how cool it gets. Just a little update on that. Yeah, you're welcome, Mark. And yeah, no problem, Craig. No problem. It's possible severe storm filmer, but right now I think they're going more conservative. They don't want to go too far over the guidance because, you know, there are some weather models showing Cat 5s, yes, and Cat 4s, but they want to be conservative. They want to give the most accurate forecast. They don't want to overperform their forecast and be unrealistic. So they're going to keep it conservative until they have the data at their disposal to increase that to 4 or 5. Then they will do it accordingly. But right now they're being realistic, and a Cat 3 looks pretty good. A Cat 4 is still possible. Same thing with a 5, but they want to be conservative, and that's what they're doing right now. And that's a good thing that they're doing that. Robertsdale, Alabama. Let's look at that real quick. Okay. Sorry, I have to see where these towns are because I'm not really familiar. Yeah, you're just south of Mobile. If you live in the Robertsville area, I would say for rainfall amounts for you, you're looking to get around a solid inch of rain, maybe 3/4 to an inch of rain. I think the heaviest will be maybe literally like 50 miles east of you into Florida, and like far eastern Alabama over there, it could be up to 7 inches on the Alabama-Georgia state line. That's what we're looking at. Again, folks, if you have not subscribed to the channel, make sure to subscribe to the channel below. We may go live this evening again, so make sure to turn on all post notifications for that. I think this pretty much wraps up the forecast here and kind of the update for you folks on the live. We've been live for around an hour now, just about. I apologize again for being a little late on the live stream. We had some technical difficulties at the start. I appreciate everybody being here. Hopefully everybody's having a wonderful Wednesday out there so far. We'll keep you updated on all social media. I have a Twitter page. You can follow me on Twitter at hweather420. It's in the description down below the live stream here. You can also email me on weatheronthego20@yahoo.com. That's down below in the description too. If you have any additional questions, I will answer them there. Otherwise, we'll be doing a video and or live stream likely later today and or tomorrow. We'll do another video. So we're going to keep you updated all around the clock on this system. So thank you to everybody for watching. Hopefully everybody has a wonderful Wednesday out there. If the sun is shining and it's nice and cool out, go for a walk this afternoon. Get some cardio going. I know a lot of people have been indoors because it's been so hot this summer. Enjoy the nice weather. Open the windows up. If you live in the western U.S., for example, where it's nice and cool, in the northern U.S. here today, beautiful sunshine up here in northern Illinois, so where I'm at. And yeah, and I'm going to go for a walk this afternoon as well, and then come back, look at more data, and potentially go live again this evening. All right, everybody. All right, stay safe, stay wonderful, and have a great rest of your Wednesday afternoon. We'll talk soon, all right? See you later, everybody. Stay safe.